Welcome to the Leverage Your Influence podcast, where we talk to amazing people about how they leverage their influence, impact, and income through podcasting. Today, we are honored to have a special guest who hails all the way from the lovely island of Trinidad and Tobago. She has a successful career in communications, and she is passionate about helping us, fellow podcasters and creatives, make our podcast dance. We want to welcome today Miss Corine La Font. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I love the title. I
Yes.
love the title of the episode,
Oh,
Dancing.
yes. Oh, yes. Our
Okay.
podcasts need to be dancing. And if they're not dancing yet, they will be by the time we're done with this conversation.
That's right.
And so you are coming to us live from the beautiful island of TNT. Tell us a little bit about that island and why you love it so much.
Well, I was born here. I was raised here. It's the best place to be. The people are awesome. We have a different sort of what would you say, upbringing to the rest of the world.
Okay.
It doesn't matter what is going on. We are what you call liming people. Once there's food, drink, you're good to go. Everything else doesn't matter. You could be owing bills. The world could be coming to an end. You know, the earth could split in two. It could shift to somewhere else. Once there is food and drink, we're on.
Wow. I love that perspective, that perspective that no matter what is going on, you can celebrate life and make the best of it. And that's a critical lesson for all of us living in troubling times. Yeah.
Yeah, we had a coup a couple of years ago, and some people held up the country. They showed themselves on TV. And what did Trinidadians do when the military said we had to go under curfew? We were having curfew parties.
Wow.
Wow. That's what we did.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. Amazing. So tell us a little bit about who Corine is and what drew you to the communications field.
Do we have time for all of that?
We got time.
I don't know. I think the universe just pulled me into communications. I just have the natural ability to write. This came about. I didn't even realize it was happening. My mother was the administrator for a hospital, and I was helping her. This is at a very young age. I don't think I had attended university at the time, so I was younger than that. And I was helping her with her investigative reports, and she got a lot of kudos. Persons were giving her positive feedback on the reports. And back in those days, there were no computers or cell phones.
Yeah.
So I had to dictate to her. She wrote it down word for word, carried it into the office, and asked the typist to type it over.
Wow.
All right. So this is not to age me now because I'm just 25. Don't mind the platinum here.
There we go. There we go.
Right. I'm just putting things into context, but I'm just sharing that is what had to happen back then. So there were no computers. And then I migrated to Jamaica a couple of years later. I ended up becoming an author, ended up writing for the Jamaica Gleaner, the #1 daily newspaper. And then I end up being on TV, on radio.
Wow.
And so everything just kind of worked its way. And it hit me. I'm like, wait a minute, how did I end up here? And then I started to sit down, look at my life, and I realized everything was just leading me into this area.
Wow.
And if people are into astrology, I'm a Virgo, you would know that people who are Virgos are very strong in communications. I don't know if it's Mercury or what. I'm not a big fan of astrology, but I looked it up and I realized that it's a connection. So we are natural communicators. We tend to align ourselves with anything under communication. And I didn't realize that is what the universe was doing and all the stars and the moon was doing for me. So I ended up in this area.
Wow. Wow. That's phenomenal that you had that interest as a girl and you were using those skills and helping your mother, and it blossomed into a full-blown communications career. That's phenomenal. So from your perspective, what makes communication truly effective? How can we effectively communicate in life, in business, at work, at school?
Yeah, well, the main skill is listening, because communication is not about somebody talking all the time, just like what we're doing here. And when I come on podcast, this is what we do. Somebody has to keep quiet and listen to the other person so that you, yeah, zip it, so that you can know if the message is well received. You can tell from my response if I understand your question, and if not, you will come back with a clarification question, or you will direct me. So there's a bit of a dance, like we say, to understand each other. That's right. So it's more listening. And if people listen more, they'll be able to understand what the other person, the message the other person is trying to say. But what we tend to do is we tend to anticipate what the other person is saying and assume that this is what they're trying to tell us or what they are telling us. And we already have the answers. We already have the advice. Even if they didn't ask for the advice, we are ready to, spit out the advice and tell people what to do when they didn't even ask for advice. Most of the times, people just want you to listen.
Wow.
And say nothing.
Wow.
Just be, but we are always ready to give advice when they never ask, So just listen. And then you have to ask people, for example, what am I to do with that information? It all depends on the context. If it's a good friend, you listen because that's what he or she needs. And then you could say, okay, are you seeking my advice? What do you need from me? Because clearly it may be support, but don't assume that. And you don't know how that person needs the support. That support may be just being my physical presence. I just need you right here with me. Or say something, and they will tell you. They'll be like, you're not saying anything. And you'll be like, say what? What do you want me to say? So they will tell you what it is that they need, but never assume. Listen, repeat what you hear. So it's like mirroring, so that you make sure that you understand what they're saying to you. And one of the things I notice people do, and it is not a good thing, is that you come to me to tell me something, and all of a sudden it becomes about me. And I take over the whole conversation or the dialogue. So you came to me with an issue, you're telling me your problems, what you're going through, what you're feeling, whatever it may be. And I am now telling you, girl, this is what happened to me, and X, Y, and Z, and I have this. And it becomes like a competition. Who has more of an issue over the other? My situation is bigger than yours. I had to deal with bigger than this. And it makes the other person feel, so what is my reason for talking to you? Why are you in my life? And it becomes like a tit for tat as opposed to support.
Wow. Powerful, powerful. I love what you stated. We should be listening to understand and not just listening to respond.
That's right.
And
that's a great summary.
That takes a level of intellectual and personal humility to listen and not feel the need to give answers all the time.
Of course.
Yeah. Powerful.
They never ask for it. But we are just in a world where I guess it's the fast food type of thing. I just want to get it out of the way. Let me just give you what I think you need, and move along. But that's not really true friendship. That's not really love. As they say in Corinthians, love is patient, love is kind. If people read Corinthians, you will see what really love is.
Yeah.
And we have to understand, as I mentioned, love, people's love language. And I find myself talking a lot about that lately, because people speak in their own language as opposed to trying to understand the other person's language and speak in that language to bring a level of communication. So if I'm talking to a Spanish-speaking person, I'm not fluent in Spanish, but I know a few words, and I will have to find some other way to connect with that person, where I draw things or use a few words and try to figure out, or probably ask someone to interpret, I don't know. But I would have to find some other way where we could connect on the same wavelength and not try to force my English or just get frustrated by the fact that I can't speak Spanish. We have to be patient. We have to be kind. And there's a difference between being nice and being kind. We tend to use the words in the same context, but they're totally two different words. Being kind is coming from a good place. It's coming from a place without expectations. Being nice, there's always expectation. Somebody's always quick to say, oh, he's nice or she's nice. No, I don't trust that. because because there's an expectation there. You're doing something with the intention is never real. But if you're
Wow.
kind, you're not looking for something in return. So communication is coming from a kind place. It's supposed to come from a kind place, not a nice place, not a place about you. Stop making it about you. The world doesn't revolve around you. So
Yeah. And,
consider that there are other people.
yeah. So beautifully stated how you framed communication as a gift to others.
It
And
is.
when you communicate well, they
Mhm.
benefit from your generosity. And there's a space for them to be heard, understood, and you can connect with them also. So it's a beautiful exchange. And that dance you talked about is a
That's
beautiful
right.
thing when people connect
That's
with
right.
each other, because what happens is when there's communication but no comprehension, talk about politically, talk about social media and all the fights we see happening. So I want to pivot because this is so beautiful. We are living in a time where we are so hyper connected on social
Mhm.
media, but there's so little comprehension. We don't understand each other because someone
That's right.
else sees the world differently. They become my
That's right.
enemy, and I'm going to
Yeah.
fight them until they're dead and gone. How can we help people understand the power of communication to bring healing?
Very good question. I think not that I think, I know it needs to start with you. You first. And a lot of us want to try and control everybody else, but really you could only control yourself or attempt to if you want to. It really has to start with a willingness. You have to be able to see that there are some, let's call them flaws for argument's sake, that you need to really work on. I'm always like this conversation we're having now, this is going to replay in my mind, and I'm going to be like, how could I have done that better? Did I say this correctly? When I go on another podcast, can I improve on what I say? So I'm always looking at how can I improve myself on the daily, on the minute, on the second? How can I be a better version of myself? And you spoke about social media, and people tend to be very emotional. And I want to say something to some people. You don't have to respond to everything. There are things you don't have to respond. No response is a response. And there are things that will trigger you that you get very emotional about when nobody's really speaking about you, nobody's targeting you. A post is made on social media. People are giving their opinions, what they feel passionately about, but it has nothing to do with you. You would have your own opinion. You could put it in there, and that's fine. But there are some people that will start what I will call an attack of people's comments.
Yeah.
We are all entitled to our opinion and feelings, and it's supposed to be a public discourse, a forum that allows for an elevation of intelligence where you can open your mind and expand your horizon on different perspectives. And when I look at comments, it turns me off. I mean, I'm like disgusted by some people's comments. And I'm like, my word, is that your behavior? I don't say it, but I see it and I move away from that because I don't want to be a part of that sort of environment. I can't infect my own self with with that type of thing. And I'm not saying it to make it sound like I'm better than anyone, but I am working on myself because you mentioned about healing, but healing has to start with you. It has to start with you. You recognizing that you're being personal or emotional about things that really has nothing to do with you when you should be adding value to that conversation. And if you can't add, you're taking away. As I guess you would have heard this if your parents would have said, or somebody would have said to you, if you have nothing good to say, don't say anything at all. Just yes, you know. So if you're not adding anything, just keep quiet, shut up, stay silent, and learn. And we have to realize that, yeah, I'm from Trinidad and Tobago. I've been acclimatized to certain things, and I may be passionate, but I don't hold fast to it. I don't hold fast to anything. I decide for myself what I am going to have as a value, what I believe, what I will follow on, what I'm passionate about. But if somebody, let's say from Africa or from China, comes with something, I'd be like, that's interesting. How did you do that? Or how did you, yeah, I never thought about it that way. So I am going to now be like, wow, this is adding to me. I never knew this could have been done, or this could have, you know, and to me, that's expanding me. It's not like, ooh, you people from Asia are so what? And you people from Africa are so, yeah, why are you doing it that way? This is how it's done. And feel like, the only way it's done is the Trini way. It's we are gone past that. What century are we in? Is it the 21st
21st.
century or something like
Yes.
that? Right? We are still behaving like, I don't know, cavemen. I never met them, but I don't know. The mentality is just, it's crazy. So if we're talking about healing and communication, we have to start with ourselves, recognizing the weaknesses, the flaws in the way we speak. And how do we know? How do we know it's not working? When you start to have that lack of a dance, let's call it that. So if anybody knows about dancing, you would realize that you watch Dancing with the Stars. Let's use that as one of my favorite shows. They move effortlessly on the dance floor. They look like they're gliding. They're just in sync, yin and yang. Why is that? There's a lead and there's a follow. If the person who is following, which is normally the woman, if she decides she wants to take over, it's no longer a dance. It's no longer a dance. The man decides where they go, how they go, in which direction, what intensity. And she's the star, because his role is to make sure she looks beautiful on the dance floor, but he's giving direction. So everybody needs to know their role. Her role is to look beautiful. And it's not about him. It's not about him, but he has to lead. But she has to be, and I know this will be a contentious word, submissive enough to let go. And when I say submissive, it doesn't mean that, she's giving up any control and all of that. But in that moment, in order for there to be a glide, in order for there to be a sync, in order for us to watch that show and say, oh my God, I wish I could do that, you can. All it takes is for you to let go of your control and allow the person to lead. And you just go with that flow. Imagine if a river decides, we on the lower part here, no, we need to go upstream is where we're going. It's not going to flow. It's just not going to flow. So there'll be constant arguments in your relationship. There'll be constant miscommunication. There'll be constant tension. There will be isolation if you're in a workplace. So these are some of the symptomatic, or sometimes even the clear signs of what is happening. And when people are taking things personally too, just like with social media, it creates even more tension because you're in a workplace. The objective is supposed to be about the work. It's not about me liking you or you liking me or I going home with you. It has nothing to do with that. We are here with an objective, and this is what we're supposed to be doing. So when you bring personal issues into that, you are actually being like the woman who is taking over the dance.
Wow, Corine.
When you're not supposed to.
Corine, you are spot on. And I love the glide and groove of this conversation.
Yes.
And when you were talking about Dancing with the Stars and how there has to be a leader and a follower, I thought about how the podcast host is leading the conversation, but their job is to allow their podcast guests to shine.
That's right.
And to look good. And that's why whenever you're talking, I'm doing my best to zip it and to listen. No matter how powerful a point you made, I'm trying not to interject, to just because I want my guest to shine. And so what advice would you give to podcasters specifically on how to make their guest shine and dance well?
Just as what you said, zip it. Don't interject. It's the worst thing because we know what it feels like when somebody interrupts what you're saying, your train of thought. And it comes back to it's a human thing where we feel, oh my God, I have such a great idea at this point. I don't know if I could keep it or hold it, but I have to say it. But you actually cut the person off. You have to work on that self-control. Even if you have a pad next to you and you could write down what you're thinking, it's best if you do that and hold that thought until the person finishes. Because remember, the audience is really here to listen to what your guest is saying. Yeah, they want to hear you, but it's really about what your guest is saying. And if you have a little notepad, you could write that down and come back to the point. But the beauty about the dance in communication is when an audience is able to watch both of us and see that sync and say, oh my God, that was such a beautiful conversation. Why was it beautiful? It wasn't about the content too much, It's a number of things. It's like, oh my God, I could actually follow what they were saying. Just like when you watch Dancing with the Stars, you could actually see why they did this move, this figure, and everything just seamlessly worked. You would have never thought the amount of work that would have gone into preparing for that 2-minute dance. How much pain, how much ankles, how much sweat, how much hours, you just don't know. So it takes work, but I don't want to make communication sound like, oh, dreary is another job. No, all it takes is for you to have that amount of self-control, to be able to work on your listening skills, and to come from a kind place. Because when you're communicating with somebody, GP, it's people are uttering words, but that's not really what they're saying. And it takes time to really get to the heart of the matter. And when you're involved with a woman, anybody would know this, when a woman is saying something, that's not really what she's saying. There's history. She would be telling you something now, but it's not that. There is something else. And if you listen and observe, you would see a trend and you would realize this is what she's saying. And if you ask clarifying questions and dig a little bit deeper, you will realize this is what she's saying to you, which is why a number of relationships get it wrong, whether it's personal or workplace, they get it wrong because they're assuming it's what they're thinking because they're already predictive and anticipatory about what the other person needs. And they're basing it on their own experience, as opposed to just having a blank canvas and saying, this person is coming to me with this. I have to listen and not bring my own baggage, my own issues into it and assume this is what he or she needs. Nope.
Wow. So there are some people who, whenever it's time to communicate, for some reason, they freeze up and they are about to have a panic attack. There are a lot of people who are literally afraid of communicating. Presentations, interviews. What advice would you give to someone who has a hard time with their nerves or their confidence when it comes to showing up and speaking for an interview or a presentation at their job? What advice would you give to someone who's struggling to podcast because they're afraid of being vulnerable and sharing and putting themselves out, whether it's audio or video, but they're afraid to do it?
The thing about it is that never goes away. It doesn't matter how professional you are as a speaker. All professional speakers say the same thing. I've been on stage, I've been on TV, I've been scared to death. I lost my words, knowing that that camera is in my face with all the lights and knowing the whole world is watching me. Listen to me, heart attack had nothing on me at that point, I'm telling you. But it never goes away. But you have to find your own little strategy. Some people say when you're in a crowd, you look above the audience, or you start to frame them as a particular face that's familiar to you. So it's like you're talking to one person that you're accustomed to, that you feel comfortable with. And if you do it a couple of times, just like how I've been on podcasts many, many times over the years, and done TV, radio, that type of thing, it kind of gets a little bit easier, but it never goes away. And as they say, if you're not scared, then something is wrong. The fear factor and the nervousness is actually what is driving you. But I've read and I apply this to myself. You have to reframe it. The nervousness could be fear with a flight or fight. And you don't want to be fighting, and you don't want to be flying anywhere, running away from anything, because you have to face people. So you have to reframe that and say, hey, I am so prepared. Talk to yourself, do self-talk. Some people, when you have to go on the stage, they have a particular routine. Some people need to have a drink before they go on the stage. Some people just don't want to talk to anybody. They just go straight out, don't disturb them, do nothing. So they have a particular kind of move or whatever it takes to get accustomed, but it never goes away. So if anybody tells you that is a lie, you just have to be able to manage it and know it's normal. And the audience, let me tell you, never could tell that you really want to run to the bathroom and you want to throw up. They're like, how are you doing that? Remember, you are the one on the stage and they are listening to you. And they if they ask anybody from the audience, come up here, nobody's running up. So the fact that you're on the stage being scared as hell, want to run to the bathroom is a big deal. You have done something that the whole audience, 5,000, 10,000 would never do. So they're looking at you like, oh my God, how is she doing that? How is he doing that? So don't think that the people who are watching you are trying to make you nervous. They're actually there to support you. And if you tell yourself that, they're going to clap, they're going to sing, they're going to dance, they're going to be like cheering you on, because they know they couldn't come up there. And you are doing the thing that they are so scared to do. So reframe it. Even just call it out. Say, listen, I am scared shit. Sorry if I had to say that. I am scared. And they'll be like, go on. People are not against you. We have to, it's a whole limiting belief. We have to tell ourselves, people are not against me. What reason would they have to be against me? I'm on your podcast, GP. We just met. What would be your reason to make me feel so uncomfortable? It just doesn't make sense. So just go with the thinking. He's here to support me. He's here to make me shine. He's here to have a good time.
Yes.
Just reframe it.
Powerful. And a few moments ago, when you said envision one person behind the camera, I thought of the word avatar. So when we're speaking, we like to speak to a determined audience and say, this is my audience. I talk to them. When you're recording your episode, you are speaking to one person. And so it's okay to envision what they look like, what they drive, where they shop, what they value, because when they're listening, they'll feel more connected to you because you are literally talking to one person. But the podcasting platform allows you to communicate one to many. And some of us get caught on those numbers. Oh my goodness, there are 100 people in the room or 100 listeners. I'm so scared. No, you're talking to one person and you have one message to share with that one person. And that should free you from unnecessary fear. We will always be nervous.
Yeah.
I'm nervous right now. Hello. Because I'm talking to the Corine La Font, okay? And during my introduction of this podcast, I fumbled the word communication. But you know what? I did not let it stop me. And we are having a wonderful dance as we speak, might I say.
That's all right, because even in dancing, we fumble. And you just need to recover. We call that recovery. Nobody would know, even on Dancing with the Stars. It happens. They make mistakes, but they're not going to stand up and say, oh my God, I made a mistake. No, they have to keep that dance going.
Yeah.
Nobody would know. The people in the audience would not know. And when you mentioned a while ago about the audience, when I go on a podcast, I'm not thinking about the audience, I'm having a conversation with you. I am here with you. But the information that we share and the dialogue that we have will obviously have a positive impact on the audience. But my focus is on you. You ask me a question, I answer it, we get deeper into it. So it's just 1-to-1. But that 1-to-1 turns out to be 2-to-many.
Yes.
Without me having to see the many or hear the many. This is 1-to-1 for me. And if we apply that same strategy with a bigger audience, it will be the same. Just think you're having a conversation with a friend. We're in the coffee shop. We're having drinks. Hey, when you go out, you're not talking to everybody at the same time. You're talking to one person at a time,
Yes. Now, before we prepare to land our plane and dance, some folks as podcasters are interested in growing their skills and craft. So do you have any tips for improving vocal tone, vocal pacing, articulation, intonation to make our vocal cords dance so that our interviews are not just monotone and boring and dry and mundane? Help us.
Well, that is professional coaching. You would have to get vocal training for that. Now, some people naturally have that voice that they don't really need much. But people tell me I have such a beautiful voice. They love to hear me speak. This is just how I have been speaking since I know myself, right? So, but I have even considered getting vocal training because I want to be better at that sort of thing. And then I do voiceovers for ads and things like that. So it also helps. But for persons who may not have a certain type of voice, or it might be kind of monotone and dragging, and they want to really pursue it professionally, you have to get professional vocal training. That will take some money and some time, and it takes consistency and practice. But the thing about it is you want to be authentic. There are some people who love that sort of monotone, dragging voice, and it works. Just accept, or probably you could match the type of podcast you do that will go with a monotone, dragging, sort of voice. So don't feel obligated just because, oh my God, GP sounds so good and Corine sounds so good. I want to sound like them. No. I don't want to sound like anybody else. I love the way I sound. And I'm not going to try to shift or become inauthentic or different just to please, because I may hear somebody else and feel, oh, I need to sound like that person too. No, go with the voice that God gives you. We spoke about gifts. Go with that. And if you want, you could the thing to adjust, maybe the type of podcast or the type of audience that you're talking to. So if somebody, just for argument's sake, have that type of voice, it may sound something like, what you call that guy's name in Thriller, who has that sort of, what's his name again? Oh my gosh, it's not coming to me. But he did that voice and it sounds like a Dracula sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that will suit it. And you may even have voiceovers that require that type of voice. My voice doesn't match everything, and that's okay. Accept the gifts that you have and make it work for you.
Powerfully stated. Thank you, sir, for sharing that, Corine. Now, as we prepare to finish our dance together, where can we connect with you? Do you have a podcast show? Do you have a blog? Anywhere we can connect with you to find out more about what you're doing and to support your work, please let us know how we can connect with you.
Well, I do have a podcast. I'm the podcast host for Between the Lines that focuses on decoding hidden meanings in communication. And so if persons want to reach me, the fastest way is on LinkedIn, or you just Google my name, Corine La Font is right in the thing here, and you will find me. Yeah, I'm the only, I think, person in Trinidad with the name Corine La Font. I would hope so. So once you Google me or you go to LinkedIn and you see this cute face, you've got me.
Wow, you heard it first, folks. Corine La Font, the one and only. And we thank you, Corine, for sharing graciously and generously with the Leverage Your Influence audience. And we are so inspired by the fact that our conversation is a dance. And we can
It
dance
is.
better when we are more intentional, patient, and understanding of others. And truly, communication can make our world a better place. And so, thank you so much for sharing and for inspiring me and for taking the time to share with my audience.
Thank you so much for having me.
It was truly an honor to host you. And thank you all, listeners and watchers, for joining us at Leverage Your Influence podcast. And we will share with you on our next episode. Take care.